What's going on, everybody? It's Tuesday night. It's 10 o'clock Central Time. We've got UFC 288 coming up this Saturday night, pay-per-view card headlined by the Bantamweight Championship fight between Aljamain the Funkmaster Sterling and Hendry Triple C Cejudo, making his return after some years away from the cage. Really looking forward to that main event. Really looking forward to the co-main event of Gilbert Burns versus Bilal Muhammad. The rest of this pay-per-view card is absolute fire. We got Jessica Andrade versus Yan Xiaonan. We've got Drew Dober versus Dober is fighting Matt Frevola, and then we've got also on that main card we got Kron Gracie fighting Charles Jourdain, and then I don't know if they're going to keep that Evloev fight on the main card because we've got a short notice opponent there, but it's a great card from top to bottom. I'm looking forward to chopping it up with you guys. Let me share my screen with you here, and we'll first start talking about last weekend. So yes, we were up 1.47 units on Saturday. We lost on the Ricky Simon money line, minus 115, 1.15 units. Yadong Song looked fantastic, stopped all the takedowns. And then we cashed on Jamie Lynn Horth, Squamish, British Columbia, stand up. Jamie Lynn Horth, minus 105, 1.05 units to win 1 unit, down 0.15 units on the straight fight picks. And then we had the under 1.5 rounds in the Vieira Brundage fight that cashed for at plus 121 for 1 unit. I had a 2-unit straight bet, which used to be a parlay on Caio Bahaio's money line, Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. That came through. We won 0.66 units there. And we had the Cody Durden Charles Johnson fight not to start round 2 at plus 400 for a quarter unit. That did not cash. Up 1.62 units on our prop and parlays. Up 1.47 units. 27% return on investment for the card. Pretty good, so we'll take that. But it was a solid week. We're on a 2-week winning streak, but we've got to keep that going. We have to put in the work this week. There's a lot of work to do today, everybody. 14 fights on this card. Some debuting fighters. Had to check out some tape on some fighters that I'd never heard of before. But I've got like 27 pages of notes here. And I've got all the stats, just like I always do for you guys. So let's talk some fights. What's going on with you guys in the chat? My guy Mushroom MMA, the very first one in the room, saying, "What's up, Uncle Weezy? 4 more sleeps until Rob Schneider fight week." Let me tell you something, Mushroom. Let me tell you something. Rob Schneider wishes he was as handsome as Virna Jandiroba, but he's not. Bob Spikerman's in the room saying, "Let's get it, man." What's up, Bob? Good to see you hanging out in here. We got the Grateful Dude in the room saying, "Oi, what's up, my man? I appreciate you hanging out with us." We got Victor De Jesus in the room saying, "Oi, yes." What's up, Weezy in chat? Happy Parker Porter versus Fridge fight week. We got Parker Porter versus Braxton the Refrigerator Smith. Can't wait to see that fight. It is going to be one of the funniest fights on the card, and it is going to be action-packed. That is going to be really, really fun. We got DJ in the room saying, "Oh, yes, I see a lot of unders this week. Let's get violent." Always remember that sometimes these pay-per-view cards that take place in the big cage and in front of live crowds, for some reason, you'll have some fighters kind of go out there kind of tentative. And for some reason, I seem to remember on these pay-per-view cards in the big cage, under bets disappointing. So be careful. Tread lightly. I know there's some spots that I absolutely love for unders, and I'm just deciding whether to smash them or not, but hey, we're going to find out today on Just the Tip when we break down all 14 of these fights. I'm going to tell you guys which ways I'm leaning. I'm going to show you all the stats for each fight. If we have any interesting over-under bets to talk about, I will give you a sneak peek at the prop template that's always available on my Patreon. So yeah, we've got a lot of angles to look at this week. 14 fights always means a lot of work for your Uncle Weezy. Jenna Marie is in the room. What's up, Jenna? And she is saying, "Let's go, Uncle Weezy," with the hearts. We love it. Thank you for hanging out, Jenny. We got Jinkies MMA in the room saying, Weezy, thank you for all you do each week. Let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks this weekend. Best of luck, sir. Best of luck to you too, Jinkies. Let's get it this weekend. Let's keep this little winning streak we got going rolling here. We got Mushroom saying what's up to Vic and what's up to Jenna Marie. We got my guy Lou Betya in the room saying, oi, Weezy, I need a Kentucky Derby pick from you before you start. Just use time-tested method of looking at names. 74 unit bet incoming. All right, let's go to Google. Let's look 2023 Kentucky Derby field. All right, I will share that screen. Let's see. Post position draw. Let's see. We've got Hit Show at 30-1, Verifying at 15-1, Two Fills at 12-1, Confidence Game 20-1, Tap It Trice 5-1, Kings Barnes, Reincarnate, Mage, Skinner, Practical Move, Disarm, Jace's Rhodes, Sun Thunder, Angel of Empire, Forte, Raise Kane at 50-1, Derma Sotogaki at 10-1, Rocket Can 30 I'm going with Rocket Can. That's what I'm doing. Rocket Can at 30-1. Book it. 57 units to win 171 units. Book it. 18 slot Rocket Can. That's your Kentucky Derby winner, everybody. All right. Let's see here. Let's get the stats up, actually. And we got Victor in the room. We got Jenna Marie. We got a bunch of icons here. We got MMA Jesus in the room. Yeah, he did. We got Ice Viking saying, Mushroom MMA, let's go. What's up, Ice Viking? Hagbard Celine saying in the room, Uncle Weezy is looking like the gambling Jesus. Uncle Weezus, he says. I love it, man. Go Flamingos in the room. Everybody's saying hello to everybody else. Ice Viking saying Marina is going to knock that left eye straight. If there's anybody that can do it, it's Marina. She hits hard. We got Bob saying dog time again. This week I bet Hawes plus 270. Great number. Virna plus 186. Great number. Santos minus 147. Great number because that's moving. Yan Zhaonan at plus 180, Zhalgas at plus 157, and the Burns under plus 125 chaos parlay. Love it, man. Weezy, if you pick one of my two horses, I'll bet it big for us. Well, I hope it's Rocket Can. We got Bob Spikerman saying hopefully we can stack those flapjacks. We got M.A. Laren saying, oi, late but still in time. Let's get those flapjacks. Looks like a great week, both to watch and bet. It's been a while. I agree. I think that there's some great betting spots here. I wrote 27 pages of notes for this show today, you guys. So I haven't even gotten in all my bets yet, but that's something that I'm going to do after the show is finalize looking at all these lines, get the spots in, and then I will tell you guys on my Patreon what I'm betting and what I'm not betting this week. Ice Viking saying Lou just stole the show. Give us the yam bags early as payments. Saying my horse sucks. Rocket Can sucks. It's a great name though. I love it. 30-1 is 1.5 yam bags. Yes, it is. It is. We got Bufo on the beat saying, oi, what's up, Bufo? Good to see you hanging out in here, man. We got the Golden Octagon in the room saying, oi, what's up, Weezy in chat? Good luck this weekend, everybody. Good luck to you, Golden Octagon. Let's get it. We got Addicted to Combat. My guy Patrick is in the room. What's up, dude? Saying happy pay-per-view week. Let's get it this week, man. I'm looking forward to this one, man. Bob Spikerman saying, thinking about an extremely non-greasy parlay. Braxton fight doesn't go to decision. Ribeiro fight doesn't go to decision. Cejudo over 1.5. I love that. That's a great play. DFS saying, what's up to Mushroom? Mushroom saying, what's up to DFS? Addicted to Combat saying my brother Braxton is knocking that bum Parker the fuck out. I believe it, dude. If Porter just stands in front of him, man, he's gonna get hit, dude, and it's gonna be good night. We got Fight Talk Only saying, oh yes, Tío Weezy, ¿cómo estás? Muy bien, ¿y tú, güey? I'm doing good, man. I can't complain. Everything is good. It's a pay-per-view week. We got 14 fights to break down. I'm feeling good, and I love that picture of young Mike Tyson there. That is so badass. We got Gogo saying, if Lou Betya was a Pokemon, he'd be Weez Dog. What's up? Hey, you guys, we're already 11 minutes in. We got a lot of work to do. So let's start it off. We've already got the stats up on the screen. As you know, all these stats can be obtained on my Patreon. The address is right there under my name. Check it out. $5 a month right now for the advanced stats package, $20 a month for the analytics, including the prop template. And that price will be going up next month to $10 a month. So get in now while it's still cheap. But even at $10, it's still going to be the best stats package available out there by a country mile. So please support my work. That really helps out. YouTube pays me nothing. I can assure you of that. So if you want to support the work, do it over at the Patreon. That's what allows me to keep doing these kind of shows here on YouTube for free. So thank you guys for joining me. 30 of you guys hanging out live with me right now. Hit that thumbs up. Hit that subscribe if you haven't already. Leave me a comment down below. Yell oi at me or let me know what your best bet of the week is. And let's get into talking about this fight. I wish you could, but you can pay me on my if you do a donation on my Cash App. I do have my Cash App posted below. I could take it through there, but as of right now, I don't have the ability to get crypto. But hopefully, one of these days in the near future, I will get that option open. Appreciate you, Dixon. Good to see you hanging out here. And we got Santos inside the distance. Santos round 2, says my guy Mushroom. He's already picking Willie Catch Santos. But let's talk about this fight. Daniel Willie Catch Santos against Johnny Munoz Jr. So Daniel Santos is a 28-year-old fighter training out of Shootbox Diego Lima in Brazil. He's got an 11-2 pro record in 13 fights and 131 minutes in the pro cage. 8 of his 11 wins come inside the distance. He's got 2 submissions and 6 knockouts. And Daniel has never been finished in his pro career. He's a pressure fighter first and foremost. He never takes a backward step, and he throws a wide variety of techniques. He's got 2 knockouts by spinning back kick to the body, and he forces a brawl basically from the word go. The distance striking numbers for Santos in the UFC are far from impressive. He's got a negative 3.27 distance striking differential. As you can see that he lands 4.84 distance strikes per minute spent at distance, but he absorbs 8.11. And he's got 29% accuracy and 52% defense. So that's got a lot of work to do here. He got pieced up at range by Julio Arce, and his striking accuracy in that fight was 21%. But Arce did a masterful job of using his jab to maintain distance, and his lateral movement and footwork were beautiful, and that helped him deal with Santos's pressure. He's spent about, and this is Santos, about 84% of his UFC cage time at distance striking range, which is where he wants to fight. So he's done a solid job of keeping fights where he's most comfortable. Santos is tough as a $2 steak. So I don't think anyone is finishing him by knockout, but his regional scene loss came against a grappler named Murad Kalimov, and Kalimov spammed takedowns and got lots of top control in all 3 rounds. But Daniel was never satisfied with the positions that he was getting put in, and he was always working to stand up. And when Kalimov gassed, Santos won the 3rd round against him. Munoz is definitely going to try to grapple here, so we'll see what Santos' takedown defense really tested early and often in this fight. Now, Johnny Munoz Jr., on the other hand, is a 30-year-old fighter, and he's got good size for the bantamweight division. He's 5'9", and he's got a 71-inch reach. He fights out of Sequence Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Norco, California, and that is a gym his parents founded. And Jimmy has trained there since the age of 5. He's earned his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt back when he was 20 years old. So it's safe to say this kid is a grappling phenom, and he does his best work when he uses that grappling base. He's 12-2 as a professional. 9 of those 12 wins coming inside the distance. That's 7 submissions for him and 2 knockouts. Johnny's striking is serviceable. One of his 2 KOs is via ground and pound, so we really can't count on Johnny to win moments on the feet. But he was able to win minutes standing against Ludwig Shalinian, but that doesn't really tell us much. I flat out think if this fight stays on the feet, Johnny pretty much has no chance. He needs to wrestle and make this a grappling match because he isn't skilled enough on the feet to win minutes against Santos like Arce did. And the clear moment winner while this fight is standing is going to be Willie Catch. Munoz didn't face high-level competition on the regional scene, and his UFC opponents have a combined record of 8 wins and 10 losses, and his 2 UFC wins are over guys with a combined UFC record of 0 wins and 4 losses. So it's hard to know, what Munoz's ceiling is at this point because he's beaten only really the lowest level guys in Jamie Simmons and Ludwig Shalinian. And then when he takes steps up, against guys like Gravely, he gets knocked out in the first round. That Nate Maness fight, he basically just hugged Maness and refused to fight for 15 minutes. And even though he should have won that fight, it was because he was so reluctant to stand and bang at any point in that fight that the judges just gave it to Maness, even though he really didn't do anything. So, in summary, we got Willie Catch is going to be 2 years younger and have over 20 more minutes in the pro cage. He has the superior striking, and while he's not the best minute winner on the feet, he's extremely durable, and he refuses to fuck off. So anyone who doesn't deal well with relentless pressure is going to have a really bad time against Willie Catch. Daniel definitely has the power advantage, and he's fought and beaten better competition as a professional. Munoz, though, is 2 inches taller, and he's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage here. He has the UFC experience advantage with 2 more fights and almost 15 more minutes in the octagon. Johnny will be the more active wrestler and superior submission grappler in this matchup. I like this fight for Willie Catch. I love the pressure and the durability that he brings. He has great cardio, and he can finish any fight with his power. Spinning back kick is always in play in any of Santos's fights. And he will need to keep this fight standing, in my opinion. If you're on the Munoz side, though, you need to look at the Kalimov fight on the regional scene and notice that Castaneda took Willie Catch down 3 times in just under 2 rounds. So Munoz winning minutes and potentially finding a sub is definitely in play if Munoz can time a beautiful entry off of Santos's pressure and get to a dominant position and work for a submission, or find the opportunity to win 2 rounds with his grappling and top pressure. That being said, I like Willie Catch to wear Munoz down with his pressure and power, and I think he finds a 3rd round knockout in this fight. So let's get the UFC 288 page up here, and let's edit these picks. And we're going to start with the curtain jerker here, and we're going to pick Daniel Willie Cat Santos. But when you listen to the Brazilian regional scene footage of Santos's fights, the announcers, they always call him Willie Catch, and it just sounds so much better. It really pops when you call him Willie Catch instead of just Willie Cat. So Daniel Santos, winner by 3rd round knockout, is going to be the pick here. Really looking forward to this fight. This guy Santos is never in boring fights. All right, the next fight. Oh, did I even put up the odds here? I think I did not, man. I did not, and I blew it. Okay, so the Daniel Willie Catch Santos right now, all lines that you see on this ticker here are courtesy of Bet Online Sportsbook. Santos, a minus 186 favorite. Johnny Munoz Jr. plus 161 is an underdog. Fight doesn't go to decision, juiced up at minus 180 here. So the next fight that we're going to talk about, though, is going to be Joseph Ugly Man Holmes at plus 150 going up against Claudio Ribeiro at -175. The fight doesn't go to decision. Juice to the tits at -350, everybody. But let's get these stats up here. And there we go. If you guys are smoking on something or sipping on a beverage, join me. You know, it's Tuesday night. It's late. We've gotten our work done for the day. Now's the easy part. Now we get to sit back and break down these fights. All right. So we got Holmes +150, Ribeiro -175. Fight doesn't go to decision, -350 here. So let's start talking about Ugly Man Joe first. He's a big middleweight. He's 6'4" and he's got an 80-inch reach. He's fairly new to the sport as he's only been fighting for 4 years, but he's been busy in that time, compiling an 8-3 pro record with over 70 minutes in the pro cage. Joe has finished all 8 of his pro wins, 6 by submission, 2 by knockout. And he's lost both of his pro fights that went to decision. So he isn't the best minute winner. And he's been finished once by submission against Jun-Yong Park after he death-gassed in the second round. On the feet, Ugly Man stays behind a long, snappy jab that he uses to maintain range. And he's also flashed some serious power in his right hand. Joe has some nice teep kicks to the body, fast, powerful kicks that get to the head quickly. In his 3 UFC fights in 24 minutes in the cage, Joe has a positive 1.15 distance striking differential, 52% accuracy, which is very good, and 62% distance striking defense, which is also solid. He's landed 1 knockdown and he's absorbed 0. Joe's only gotten 1 takedown in his UFC career, and he averages 0.62 takedowns per 15 minutes, but he tends to get takedowns with reaps in the clinch. You don't really see him going out there shooting single or double legs. He's shown 50% takedown defense on 8 attempts against, and he's been out-controlled 31% to 17% in control time positions, winning only 36% of them. For a guy who's done his best work on the mat from top position, I'd like to see Joe commit more to the wrestling and use that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt of his to win minutes on the mat from top position and also to hunt for submissions. But what really worries me, you guys, about Joe Holmes is his conditioning. He really slowed down against Pickett. He won the first round pretty clearly, but got out-volumed and outworked by Jamie in the second and third, and he wound up losing a unanimous decision there. That's a bad look against Jamie Pickett. And then when Ugly Man Joe fought Jun-Yong Park, he completely death-gassed after the first round and got subbed by rear naked choke. Ugly Man's fought a below-average level of competition at the UFC level, and the guy that he beat, Alan Amadowski, 0-4 in the UFC. So this opponent is pretty much right in line with the level of guys that he's fought thus far at this level. Now, Claudio Ribeiro is a 30-year-old Muay Thai striker out of Brazilian Black Thai. He's 6'1", a 77-inch reach, and he's big and muscular. He's 10-3 as a professional, 67 minutes in the pro cage. All 10 of Claudio's wins are by knockout. And like Holmes, he's never won a decision in his career. This dude has serious power in his hands. On the feet, Claudio throws hard. He throws low leg kicks and he plants his feet and he throws big hooks and overhand rights. There's no jab. There's no touch and go. He cares not about points. Claudio is there to stand and bang, and he trusts his power and he knocks dudes senseless. He certainly doesn't look technical, but because he throws with such power and purpose, all it takes is one shot to knock you out. I haven't seen any footage of Claudio trying to wrestle or grapple. If he wants to stand and bang and he only uses his grappling in reverse to stop opponents' takedown attempts, and he has solid takedown defense and a good get-up game. All of Claudio's wins have been by first-round knockout, except for his FFC championship bout against Kellis Albuquerque, which went to the 5th round, with Ribeiro winning by retirement, and Claudio's conditioning looked good in a very high-paced fight that lasted for over 22 minutes. There were points where he was definitely resting and taking time off, but he would do that for about 30 to 60 seconds and then start throwing again. And even though he was exhausted, he showed the ability to be able to fight while tired and still show that he was looking to finish the fight late in the 4th and in the 5th, which he did, he wound up his opponent's corner threw in the towel. Or no, they didn't throw in the towel, but the guy just refused to get up because Ribeiro kept knocking him down, but then he wouldn't get back up. So, Claudio is a charismatic fighter who's very fun to watch, and this kid can really dance too. If you check that out, you got to watch this kid dance. He's talented. So what's not to like there? But in summary, Ugly Man Joe is going to be 3 years younger, and he's going to be 3 inches taller and have a 3-inch reach advantage. So he's got some really nice measurables advantages here. He's got a little more UFC experience with 2 more fights and almost 20 more minutes in the octagon. Joe's the better technical striker and minute winner at range because of his ability to maintain distance with his jab and kicking attack. And he will definitely be the better submission grappler in this fight. Claudio will have the power and conditioning advantages in this fight. And against a gasser like Holmes, the conditioning advantage is going to be huge. I think Holmes' best win condition is a finish in the first round and a half. He could get a KO, but he wouldn't have enough energy to get takedowns against a strong guy like Ribeiro. So I think if he gets a sub, he's going to have to do it early in the fight when he has the chance to get on top either with a takedown or a knockdown. Even though I think Holmes is the better all-around fighter, I can't pick him here because of his inability to fight hard for more than 6 or 7 minutes. So I'm going to pick Claudio Ribeiro to win this fight by second round knockout. So let's go here. And we're going to get that beautiful head of hair on Ribeiro there. But, Holmes has also got a beautiful head of hair. That's not why I'm not picking Holmes. He's got beautiful hair. But I am going with Claudio Ribeiro, knockout, round 2. And the conditioning for Holmes is the reason that I'm making this pick. Holmes's conditioning looked solid on the regional scene when he would go into the second round. But at the UFC level, it's just looked awful in both the Park fight and his debut. So I just don't. His debut was against Pickett, by the way. So I just don't like that for him. And I feel like if his only win condition is round 1 because of that, inability to go hard for more than 5 minutes, that Ribeiro is just as live in round 1. So I do like him, Claudio Ribeiro, to win this fight. Second round knockout, we'll call it. All right. The next fight is going to be Rafael Estevam, or it would be Rafael Estevam, minus 185, going up against Zhalgas Zhumagulov at plus 160. The fight doesn't go to decision, is plus money, plus 125. So hang on a sec here. All right. Let me get my notes up here and let me get the stats up here for you guys. All right. So Estevam Zhumagulov. So let's first start talking about Rafael Estevam. He is a 26-year-old prospect from Brazil, fighting out of Nova União. He's got an undefeated pro record, 11 wins, 0 losses, with 7 wins coming inside the distance, 4 of them knockouts, 3 of them subs. Rafi turned pro at the age of 18, and he has over 110 minutes in the pro cage already. So he's pretty experienced for a 26-year-old, and he's still undefeated. So this kid really is a good prospect training at a good camp. He's a very aggressive fighter. He does his best work when he gets takedowns and works from top control, but he is competent everywhere. He pushes a pace, and he's never satisfied standing with an opponent that wants to stand with him. And even when he's fighting a grappler with a very aggressive guard, like he did João Elias on Dana White's Contender Series, who was 11 wins by submission, by the way. He had no qualms with going into the grappling exchanges, defending submission attempts, piling up top control, scoring points with ground and pound. Rafi's striking's okay. It's probably not going to win him a lot of minutes or moments at the UFC level, but Esteban has done an excellent job in all the available tape of not staying on the feet when the striking exchanges aren't going his way. I don't think we'll have to worry about Rafi falling in love with his hands and standing in front of Zhalgas when he doesn't have to. So the question is, how will Zhalgas' takedown defense and get-up game hold up against a relentless grappler with excellent conditioning in Estevam? And by the way, Estevam had asthma when he was young. And because of that, he trained himself, started swimming from a very young age to test his lungs and to make them stronger so that he could overcome the asthma. And he says that he's got huge lungs as a result of beating asthma and swimming so hard as a youngster in order to beat asthma. So I think that's one of the reasons that we see Estevam as one of these guys who does use pace as a weapon here, but he really kind of needs to do it with the grappling, because the striking, there's just really no evidence on the available footage that we have on this guy that the striking is UFC level yet. But the conditioning is, and the wrestling is very good, and the top control is very good. So if he can get takedowns, I do believe that he will be able to push that pace for the full 15. So his last 3 wins for Estevam are against solid regional scene competition, and Eric Visconti, who's 7-1 at the time of the fight, Felipe Esteves, who was 7-0 at the time of the fight, and João Elias, 17-3-1. So it looks like he's ready for the UFC, and at the tender age of 26, he still could be improving and adding new wrinkles to his game. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing Rafi make his UFC debut on Saturday, and he's going to be facing the man with 7 wives, Zhalgas Zhumagulov. He's got more wives than he does UFC losses, but poor Zhalgas. I mean, he's 1-5 in the UFC, and 3 of those losses came in very close fights to Raulian Paiva, and in that fight, Paiva missed weight by 3 pounds. Jeff Molina and Charles Johnson. And an argument could be made that Zhalgas won all 3 of those fights, and if he did, he'd be 4-2 in the UFC. But you know what? If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, oh, what a Christmas we'd all have, right? But it's just not how the cookie crumbled for poor Zhalgas here. So he's 1-5, and there's nothing anybody can do about that now. So the judges hate him. He's got 7 wives at home bitching at him. God only knows how many mouths this dude has to feed back in Kazakhstan, and he can't buy a fucking break from the judges. He's coming out of a short-lived retirement to face a prospect that's red hot right now, and this kid is going to be 8 years younger, 4 inches taller, and have a 3-inch reach advantage over poor Zhalgas. If you've been on Zhalgas in the Paiva, Molina, and Johnson fights, you really have to wonder how many of Zhalgas's wives he stole from the Vegas judges, because the judges really seem to hate this man. He's got a mediocre pro record of 14 wins and 8 losses, but he's been fighting really high-level competition for the majority of his career. In an 8-year, 22-fight pro career, Zhalgas has already amassed over 280 minutes of cage time as a pro, and he has 6 UFC fights and over 65 minutes in the UFC cage. He's finished 8 of his 14 pro wins, 7 of them by knockout and 1 by submission. So he really does tend to try to win moments with his striking and use his grappling to win minutes. Outside of Zhalgas' 2 fights that ended in the first round against Kopp and Rivera, he's only managed 12.5% control time against his opponents on 31 takedown attempts. So even though Zhalgas has been trying to win minutes with his grappling by attempting 31 takedowns, he hasn't been able to convert that into solidly winning enough minutes to win these close decisions. Zhalgas' only UFC win comes against Jerome Rivera, who is 0-4 in the UFC. And his losses come against guys who have compiled a 15-9 UFC record. So he's fought a solid level of competition overall, and he's definitely faced the superior regional scene and UFC level of competition in comparison to his debutant opponent. So in summary, Rafi Estevam is going to be 8 years younger, 4 inches taller, and have a 3-inch reach advantage here. He's going to be the more committed grappler, and he will be pushing a pace for the entire fight. We haven't seen someone aggressively grapple Zhalgas yet in the UFC outside of round 3 of the Albazi fight. But Zhalgas defends takedowns and submission attempts well, and when he does get taken down, he isn't happy there. He always looks to get back up. Zhalgas has the overall and UFC experience advantages. He should be the better minute and moment winner while this fight is on the feet, and he's definitely fought, beaten, and lost to the much better brand of competition overall. Zhalgas is always in close fights. He went tooth and nail with guys like Raulian Paiva, Amir Albazi, Jeff Molina, Charles Johnson, Tagir Ulanbekov, Ali Bagatinov, Tyson Nam, and none of those guys ran a clinic on him. Only Manel Kopp was able to dispose of Zhalgas with a flying knee at the UFC level. And outside of that, Zhalgas is fighting at or even above the level of the majority of his opponents. This is a huge step up in competition for Estevam. He's only 26. He's making his UFC debut in front of a live crowd on a pay-per-view card. I wouldn't lay juice on him here. Too many factors in Zhalgas' favor. I'm going back to the well on the handsome Kazakh with 7 wives. Zhalgas Zhumagulov by decision is going to be your Uncle Weezy's pick for this fight. So I like this Estevam kid. I think that he's going to have a lot of success at this level when his opponent doesn't have as great a takedown defense. But I think Zhalgas has, cutting his teeth on the Russian regional scene is going to make you somebody that has seen wrestlers. This guy has seen crotch sniffers his entire pro career. And so I don't think Estevam is going to bring anything that he hasn't already seen. And we've seen Zhalgas swim with guys on the ground who are much more credentialed at this point in their careers than Estevam is. So Zhalgas Zhumagulov by decision will be the pick here. This next fight is going to be a fun one. We are going with Ikram Aliskerov going up against no hype Phil Hawes. Hawes plus 180, Aliskerov minus 210. The fight doesn't go to decision. Juice to the tits and minus 230 here. So let's get these stats up on the screen. Hawes Aliskerov. And let's first start talking about Phil Hawes here after we get a sip of this beverage. So Phil is a 34-year-old wrestler. He's 34 now, you guys. 12-4 professional record, 96 minutes of professional cage time. He's finished 10 of his 12 pro wins inside the distance, 8 of them knockouts, 2 of them submissions. And Phil has been finished in all 4 of his pro losses, 3 of them knockouts, 1 of them by submission. He's accumulated some nice striking metrics thus far in 6 UFC fights. Phil's got a positive 3.54 distance striking differential, and he throws 1.79 more distance strike attempts than his opponents. And he's got a fantastic 58% distance striking accuracy and almost 63% distance striking defense. He's landed and absorbed 2 UFC knockdowns in his 6 UFC fights, and he's won and lost twice in the UFC by knockout. Phil's striking is damn good if he can avoid getting clipped like he did against Chris Curtis. Hawes' striking is looking crisp and powerful lately. He's clearly been improving significantly in that area. That improvement in the striking has him going to his wrestling less, though. Phil has nice grappling metrics at the UFC level. He's got 8 takedowns in the UFC, averaging 2.48 takedowns per 15 minutes. And he's got 100% takedown defense on 7 takedown attempts against. So 47% of Phil Hawes' fights are taking place in control time positions, and he's out-controlling his opponents 38% to 9% and winning 80% of those positions. The 2 biggest problems with Hawes, one is his tendency to lose moments in the striking and get clipped, and his tendency to slow down or even gas out later in high-paced back-and-forth fights. He's been knocked out savagely in 2 of his last 3 fights, and at the age of 34, that is very concerning. Phil has fought a solid level of UFC competition thus far, and his 4 UFC wins are over solid guys. Jacob Malkoun, Nasruddin Mavov, Kyle Dawkins, and Duran Win. And they have a combined 11-win and 11-loss UFC record, those 4 guys that he's beaten. So on the other side is going to be Ikram Aliskerov. Ikram is a 4-time world Sambo champion fighting out of Makhachkala, Dagestan, Russia. He's got a 13-1 pro record in 109 minutes in the pro cage and an 11-year pro career. So Ikram has not been active as a professional, but he definitely has been a consistent winner with his only pro loss coming against the gourmet Chechen, Hamzat Kamayev. Ikram has got solid striking. He uses meat and potatoes techniques, and he mixes in some uppercuts and jump knees to keep his opponents guessing. Everything Ikram does on the feet is just done as part of his plan to close the distance. Back his opponents up to the cage, get in on their hips, chain his takedown attempts together, and get fights to the ground. Once the fights are there, Ikram is in his world and does his best work by putting that Sambo background to use. Ikram is heavy on top. He's always lacing his opponent's legs, getting a wrist ride, working his way into dominant positions where he can hunt for arm triangles, kimuras, land ground and pound, all the while racking up control time and running out the clock. Ikram will try to finish fights. His submission grappling is excellent, and he has the ability to get to positions where he can set up those subs, and his gas tank is sufficient to push that grappling heavy pace for the full 15 minutes. Aliskerov has been fighting in top-notch regional scene promotions for almost his entire professional career, and he's fought a high level of regional scene competition, as the combined records of his opponents at the time he fought them was 114 wins and 46 losses. So he should be ready to take the next step of fighting UFC level competition. So in summary, Phil Hawes, he's got the UFC experience advantage with 6 more fights and almost 50 more minutes in the octagon, as Aliskerov will be making his UFC debut on Saturday. Phil should have the better minute and moment winning potential in the striking exchanges, especially early in the fight, and his high-level wrestling background and 100% takedown defense should serve him well against the Combat Sambo world champion. Now, Phil has fought the better level of competition over his professional career, but Ikram now is 4 years younger than Phil Hawes. He's got the better ground game once it gets there, and is way more opportunistic with his submission grappling. And his wrestling is definitely on par, if not better than Phil's. But, Phil's really more of a really good freestyle wrestler, while Ikram is more of a Sambo, MMA wrestling type of guy. So we're going to find out on Saturday which one of these dudes actually has the better MMA wrestling game. But Phil Hawes is very well credentialed, and he's been doing it at the UFC level for a much longer time. So it'll be interesting to find out who is the better grappler in terms of being able to get the fight to the ground, or even just choosing where this fight takes place. One thing that is huge here is that I think that Ikram is going to have the conditioning and the durability advantages. And I think that those both loom large. So as a result of that, I like Ikram to kind of weather the early storm, maybe win that second round with his grappling and top control if he can get takedowns, and finish the fight in the third when Phil is gassed out and ready to break. So Ikram Aliskerov by third round submission is the pick. But I mean, I wouldn't lay the juice on this guy. I think Phil Hawes is the much better striker. And if Ikram is unable to get this fight to the ground, I think he's going to be in a world of hurt on the feet. And, just because I like Ikram to win the fight and I'm picking him to win this by third round knockout, man, I think Phil Hawes round 1 and 2 is very live. We've seen Ikram finished in his only loss. And Phil Hawes has got really good power. And in my opinion, he's just got excellent striking. He got caught by Chris Curtis. And then Dolidze tore his leg in half. And then after that, he couldn't move. And Dolidze backed him up to the cage and took his head off. But Ikram Aliskerov is not Roman Dolidze with the power. And he doesn't have the technical striking and boxing of Chris Curtis. So I don't like this matchup for Ikram. I'm going to pick him to win it by third round submission, but I am considering a money line bet on Phil Hawes. And I think an even better way to play it would be something in the neighborhood of Hawes round 1, round 2 finish, or Hawes by first round knockout or second round knockout. But this is a great fight. Fantastic prospect with a great Sambo base in Aliskerov, going up against a guy that's a legit wrestler with great power, but not the greatest gas tank in Phil Hawes here. All right. And the moment we've all been waiting for, everybody, Braxton, the beautiful monster Smith, going up against Paca Porter. Porter, the favorite here at minus 175. Braxton making his debut, the underdog at plus 150. Fight doesn't go to decision. Juice to the tits, minus 450. All right, so let's get these stats up on the screen. We don't have anything yet, obviously, for Braxton Smith because he's making his debut. But let's talk about Braxton, the beautiful monster here. He's a 33-year-old fighter training out of Black Sheep Boxing. He has no listed height or reach, but the best way to estimate both would be to go and measure the dimensions of your refrigerator, and you'll have a good idea of his dimensions once you do that. He's got 6 professional fights as Braxton Smith, a 5-1 record, and his entire pro career has lasted 8.82 minutes. And he's never seen a second round, and every single one of his fights has ended in knockout. Braxton is not skilled. He's not fluid. He's not well-rounded. He's not well-conditioned. He is not handsome. But please, for the love of Jah, do not get hit. Do not get hit against this guy. Braxton Smith made his pro MMA debut back in 2014 against Chase the Vanilla Gorilla Sherman, and he lost by knockout. That was Sherman's debut as well. He then took 8 years and 4 months off of MMA after losing to Chase Sherman. And then he took his second pro fight back in May of 2022, so about a year ago. And he beat, he knocked out Cody the Nasty Native Beck in a minute and 25 seconds with a head kick. Less than 2 months later, he shaved the ass of Ja'Cory Savage in 49 seconds via head kick. Less than a month later, he sent Edilson Lopes to the land of wind and ghosts 2 minutes and 3 seconds into the first round of that fight. Now, less than 2 months later, he punted Cameron the Dark Shark Chisholm's head into the cheap seats, and that only took a minute and 40 seconds. His next fight came 5 months later, once again against Ja'Cory Savage. Evidently, Peak Fighting Promotions doesn't have a deep heavyweight bench. But once again, he shaved poor Ja'Cory's ass, and this time he beat his previous record of 49 seconds. It took him 49 seconds to shave Ja'Cory Savage's ass the first time. He beat his record the second time, shaving poor Ja'Cory Savage's ass in only 44 seconds. Once again, Braxton is making the quick turnaround, as this fight is only 8 weeks removed from his last one. There doesn't appear to be much else to Braxton's game other than throwing wild overhands like he's trying to throw a 137-mile-an-hour fastball through a brick wall. But sometimes that's enough to win in the heavyweight division. There's no way to know for sure, but I'm pretty confident that Braxton's conditioning, wrestling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, striking fundamentals, fight IQ, takedown defense are all terrible. But we've never gotten far enough into one of his fights to find out, because every time this dude touches someone, they melt. If you add up the current pro records of his opponents, it's 34 wins and 28 losses. So it's not like he's fighting complete bums on the regional scene. And when he fought Chase Sherman back in 2014, that was Chase's pro debut as well. It's going to be fun to watch the Refrigerator make his debut on Saturday. And I'm petitioning the entire UFC community who watches and supports my content to pressure Braxton to make the nickname change from the Beautiful Monster to the Refrigerator. And this man is fighting an icebox in Parker Porter. Parker Porter is a 38-year-old veteran who's got 20 professional fights. He's got a 12-8 pro record with almost 150 minutes in the pro cage. He turned pro at the age of 22. He's been a pro for over 15 years. He fought John Jones back in 2008, and he's been 3-3 in the UFC thus far, with 55 minutes in the octagon. Parker has finished 8 of his 12 pro wins, 3 by submission, 5 by knockout, and all of his pro losses are inside the distance. He's been submitted 3 times, knocked out 4 times, and disqualified once. He's fairly well-rounded for a heavyweight. And I'm not just talking about his enormous ass. He's experienced. He's got solid conditioning, serviceable striking, and he'll mix in the grappling. And even though he doesn't have great wrestling, when he does get fights to the ground, they tend to stay there. And Parker can hunt for submissions as well as land good ground and pound. When fights are on the feet, Parker is a high volume striker for a heavyweight. He lands 8.39 distance strikes per minute while attempting 17.4 per minute, and he throws and lands just a little more than his opponents do over the long term. Parker hasn't shown power yet at the UFC level, as he has yet to land a knockdown, and he's been dropped 3 times at the UFC level and lost 2 fights by knockout. All 3 times Porter was finished was in the first round, and all 3 of Parker's wins are by unanimous decision. So it's safe to say Parker's more of a minute winner than a moment winner. Mixing in the grappling has been crucial to Parker's success in the UFC, and he's 3-0 in the fights where he's gotten a takedown, and he's 0-3 in the fights where he hasn't. Parker gets 1.36 takedowns per 15 minutes. He outcontrols his opponents 24% to 11%, and he wins over 69% of the control time positions he's been in. It must be mentioned that Parker has attempted 20 takedowns while his opponents have only attempted 1. And the one time Parker was taken down, it was by Jailton, and he was subbed after being controlled for almost 4.5 minutes with about 25 seconds left in the first by rear naked choke. He's not going to have to worry about that level of grappling in this fight. So if Parker is smart and if he values his brain health, he needs to not stand in front of Braxton and do his best to get this fight to the ground, where there's a good chance Braxton will be a fish out of water off his back. Parker's fought a slightly below average level of competition at the UFC level, but his wins are over guys with a combined UFC record of 6 wins and 17 losses. So he's still yet to beat anything but really low-level heavyweights like Sherman, who beat Smith back in 2014, Parisian, and Bedoya. So in summary, the refrigerator is almost 5 years younger, and he has way more power. Parker, though, is taller, longer, more experienced overall and in the UFC. He's the better fundamental striker, the better grappler, and he's fought the better level of competition. But all that shit goes right out the window if Braxton lands big on Parker just once. I'm looking for a playable Braxton Smith by first round knockout line. I think the fight doesn't go to decision. Should be as close to a lock as it gets. And I think that there's a high likelihood of a Porter finish in the second round after the refrigerator blows a fuse and has an adrenaline dump. So I'm picking Paca Porter to win by second round ground and pound KO. So Paca Porter over Braxton, the refrigerator Smith, and we're calling it a knockout in round number 2. All right. Next fight, Marina Rodriguez, minus 144, going up against Virna Jandiroba, plus 124. The fight doesn't go to decision, plus money at plus 160 for this one. So let's start talking about Marina Rodriguez after I get another sip off of this lovely beverage from our friends over at Hop Butcher Brewery. Hop Butcher, the king of the hazy IPA here in Chicago. We work hard, so we drink good beer. All right. Marina, 36-year-old strawweight. Good size and length for the division. Shit, we got to put the stats up on the screen so you guys can see them. All right. She has an impressive 16 wins, 2 losses, 2 draw pro record with almost 250 minutes in the pro cage. She's 6 wins, 2 losses, 2 draws in the UFC with over 150 minutes in the octagon. Marina has finished 7 of her 16 pro wins, and she's got 1 submission and 6 knockouts. In the UFC, 8 of Marina's 10 fights have seen the scorecards. She was finished by Amanda Lemos, and Marina knocked out Amanda Ribas. So only fights against ladies named Amanda have finished inside the distance for Marina Rodriguez. The those are the kind of stats that you're only going to find here, folks. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I feel like I have to sometimes. So Marina Rodriguez, a Muay Thai striking base. She uses her length to maintain range. She mixes up combinations with her hands along with kicks to all targets on the body. She does a good job of using her grappling in reverse to keep fights standing, where she does her best job of winning minutes. And the occasional moment there to compile an impressive 9 wins, 1 loss, and 2 draw record in decisions. In the UFC, Marina has a positive 2.15 distance striking differential, a positive 4.33 distance strike attempt differential, and she's got 40% accuracy and 65% defense. Marina has landed 2 knockdowns and absorbed 0, so her power does flash occasionally at this level, and Marina is particularly nasty in the clinch. Marina rarely offensively grapples. She's getting 0.1 takedowns per 15 minutes and has only gotten 1 takedown in 10 UFC fights. Marina's had 46 takedowns attempted against her, and she's defended 65% of them. She allows 1.53 takedowns per 15 minutes, and she gets out-controlled 27% to 6%. And she's losing 81% of the grappling position she's been in. So obviously Marina's opponents prefer not to stand with her, and they've had some success winning minutes against her with wrestling and grappling. In Marina's 2 UFC losses and 2 UFC draws, she's allowed 11 takedowns on 20 attempts and given up over 40% control time on the aggregate in those 4 fights. Marina's also given up control time to her opponents in the fights that she's won, but she's limited the damage or was able to defend submission attempts or get back up when she was taken down. Most notably against Hibas, Watterson, and Dern, she had success winning more minutes on the feet than she lost on the ground in those fights, and it led to her getting 2 decision nods and a second-round knockout over Hibas after getting dominated on the ground for the first round in that fight. So Marina's fought a very solid level of competition at the UFC level and has some very good wins. On the other side, we got my gal, Virna Jandiroba, 34-year-old Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner out of Fight House in Brazil, 18-3 pro record, and just under 185 minutes in the pro cage. She's 4-3 in the UFC with just under 80 minutes in the UFC octagon. Virna's got 14 finishes, with 13 of them coming by submission, and the only knockout was a doctor's stoppage between rounds because she broke Kaneko Murata's arm with an armbar earlier in the fight. So it's safe to say Virna does her best work on the ground, and she's very dangerous with her submission grappling. On the feet, Virna's got a herky-jerky style. She bounces back and forth, throws a slow 1-2, and an overhand right that you can time on a sundial. She's got a negative 1.01 distance striking differential, 35% accuracy, and 62% defense. And she spends about 53% of her UFC cage time at distance striking range. If this fight stays at distance striking range, Marina is gonna piece her up, guaranteed. That being said, Virna knows where she does her best work, and it's when the fight is on the ground. Whether she's on the top or the bottom, she's extremely dangerous, innovative, and opportunistic with her submission game. She averages 2.31 takedowns per 15 minutes, 1.15 submissions per 15 minutes, and 0.38 reverses per 15 minutes. She's winning 62% of the control time positions that she's been in, and that number would probably be higher if she wasn't so aggressive looking for finishes. She's been in there with 2 of the best grapplers in the division, or 3 of them actually, with Mackenzie Dern, Amanda Hibas, and Carla Esparza, as has Rodriguez. So when Virna fights someone who isn't on her level with the BJJ, it quickly becomes evident, like it did in the Angie Hill, the Mallory Martin, and the Felice Herod fights. Virna's fought a solid level of competition at the UFC, and her wins come over opponents with a 17-win and 21-loss combined UFC record. So she's still waiting to earn a win over a better opponent than Angela Hill. And if she beats Marina Rodriguez on Saturday, it's definitely going to be her best UFC win to date. So in summary, This is as striker versus grappler as it gets, and whichever fighter forces the fight to take place where they're most comfortable, whichever fighter achieves that is probably going to win this fight. Marina's going to have a 3-inch height and a 1-inch reach advantage. She's got more minutes in the pro cage, and she's got a slight UFC experience advantage with 3 more fights and almost 80 more minutes in the octagon. Marina will be the better minute and moment winner at striking range, and she's fought the better strength of schedule, and her wins are better than Virna's as well. Virna's 1 year younger, way more handsome, and has a much better head of hair than Marina Rodriguez. She's the better finisher, and she's also been more durable. Virna will be the far superior submission grappler. This is a hard fight to call. I like the fight doesn't go to decision because no matter where this fight takes place, one of the two fighters will be dangerous. Virna showed off a better gas tank in her last fight against Hill and found a lot of success getting the fight to the ground and came close on a couple of submission attempts. But Marina's been in bad spots before against great grapplers like Cynthia Calvillo and Mackenzie Dern, and she's never been subbed in her pro career. I like Marina to keep this fight standing, do way more damage on the feet, and stay safe from Virna's submission attempts and win a decision here. But I did take a quarter unit shot on Virna Jandiroba to win by submission at plus 525 on Bet Online Sportsbook. So, but we're going to go with Marina Rodriguez, and I'm going to pick her to win this one by decision. But I could also maybe even see her getting a third-round knockout if the very handsome Virna Jandiroba is unable to get this fight to the ground and has to stay at distance striking range with a Muay Thai practitioner like Rodriguez. And if it's on the fight, if it's on the feet, Rodriguez is more dangerous. If it's on the mat, Jandiroba is more dangerous. But if it's in the clinch, that's Marina as well. So because she's got that clinch advantage, I'm going to go with Marina Rodriguez to win this fight by decision. All right. The next fight. Oh my God, my camera was unplugged. Dear God. Let me go to the settings, you guys. Hang on just a second. Bear with me. All right. Not working. Okay. All right. Let's see if we can find a better camera here. Oh, yeah. Let's just start camera. There we go. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. Gotta say, Unc, not showing the love tonight. No chat interaction. Don't go Hollywood on us, dude. I have to read the notes, so I'm not looking at the chat when I am reading the notes on these fights. Apologize, Nigel, but I'm looking to get the information out here as much as possible. That's why I do ask Weezy. That's why we do chat interaction at the beginning of the show, man. We got this next fight though is going to be Khaos Williams versus Rolando Bedoya. Let's see here. Here are the stats. Here are the notes. Oh, shit. Nigel Lee with the donation. My man, I didn't even see the donation. That's why I'm not even looking at these things. Ring a ding ding. What's up, Uncle and chat? Weezy 2024. Song came with that dong last week to pay me lovely. Shout out to Mushroom MMA, Daz Files, Sean V, my adopted Uncle Weezy, and all the OGs in the chat. Appreciate you, Nigel Lee, with the only donation of the show. Much love to you, man. Truly appreciate you showing a little bit of support here for Uncle Weezy's Just a Tip, man. 52 of you guys live hanging out in here with us. Yeah, I do need this, man. I do need this. God. Little guy getting left behind when people get big time. No, man, that's not me, dude. If I were big time, dude, I would have a lot more. I don't have So I'm not big time in anybody. Trust me, you guys. 49 of you here live hanging out. Hit that thumbs up. Hit that subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, Khaos Williams is a big favorite here over Rolando Bedoya, making his debut. Minus 315 for Khaos, plus 265 for Rolando. The fight doesn't go to decision, juiced up to minus 275. So let's first start talking about Khaos Williams in this spot. Khaos is a 29-year-old fighter fighting out of Murcielago MMA. He's 6 feet with a 77-inch reach. Khaos is 13-3 as a professional with almost 150 minutes in the pro cage, with 8 of those wins coming inside the distance. He's got 7 knockouts and 1 submission. So obviously Khaos is a knockout artist. He's got a very solid 4-2 UFC record with 57 minutes in the octagon, and his wins are coming against really solid UFC competition with winning records. Khaos is not only high volume on the feet, but he's powerful. His positive 0.92 distance striking differential is as solid as his positive 5.95 distance strike attempt differential. Khaos has got 3 UFC knockout wins, 4 UFC knockdowns, and he's landing a knockdown on 1.62% of the distance strikes that he's landing. So not only can Williams win minutes on the feet, but he also has moment winning potential and a proven record of finishing fights, with 3 of his 4 UFC wins coming inside the distance. Khaos wants his fights to stay standing, and at the UFC level, his fights have taken place at distance striking range 84% of the time. Khaos has attempted only 2 takedowns in 6 fights, and he didn't get either of them. He didn't get either of them, and he's defended 75% of the 8 takedowns attempted against him, and he's still managed to outcontrol his opponents 13% to 2.75%. Winning almost 83% of the control time positions he's been in. So he's very efficient in the grappling exchanges. And as a result, his fights mostly stay standing, where Khaos is always very dangerous. Khaos has been tested at this level. So this fight is against Bedoya, will be the easiest, the low-level opponent that he's faced thus far in his UFC. So Bedoya is known as the Machine. He's a 26-year-old Peruvian fighter. He's scrappy as fuck. He's got a cast iron chin, solid conditioning. He mixes in the wrestling and clinch game, and he puts together his combinations well. He's got an impressive 13-1 pro record, over 167 minutes in the pro cage in an almost 9-year career, which means Rolando turned pro at the age of 17. He's finished 6 of his 13 wins inside the distance, 3 by knockout and 3 by submission, and he's 7-1 in decisions. On the feet, Rolando's aggressive. He mixes his kicks and punches well. He throws a lot of low leg kicks. He always seems to be throwing in combination. He has a very reliable chin that he relies on way too much because he loves blocking punches with his face in the pocket while he throws counters. I'm not sure if that strategy is going to work well outside of the South American regional scene, because when he's in the UFC octagon, he's going to see much more powerful fighters. Rolando seems to fight smart. If he gets clipped, he'll clinch up and find some time to recover. And he's shown the ability to mix in the wrestling as well and win minutes on the ground. And he's shown a solid front choke series that he used to finish the fight against Pablo El Perro Dorta. We also saw Rolando get takedowns in the Otarola fight and showed a competent top game, setting up submissions by landing ground and pound and getting to dominant positions. It appears Rolando appears to be pretty well-rounded, but defensively irresponsible. One thing to be aware of is 7 of Rolando's last 10 fights have been canceled, and his wins are over guys that are definitely not UFC level. However, the Machine is still only 26 years old, and he has that dog in him. Toughness and durability that you can't teach, and he should be making improvements to his already solid all-around attack. So, in summary, this is going to be a fun fight. Khaos is 1 inch taller, and he's got a 2-inch reach advantage. He's got the UFC experience advantage with 6 more fights and 57 more minutes in the octagon, as Rolando will be making his UFC debut on Saturday. Khaos is the better finisher overall, and neither guy has ever been finished. Khaos will be by far the more powerful striker in this spot, and his grappling efficiency at this level has been fantastic. Khaos has fought, beaten, and lost to the much better level of competition in comparison to Bedoya. And the machine will be 3 years younger than Khaos. He's well-rounded, durable, and game. But that being said, he doesn't really have any discernible advantages over Khaos here. This will be a fun fight, but it should be fairly one-sided. And I'm going to pick Khaos Williams to win this fight by first-round knockout here. So let's get Khaos Williams by KO in round number 1. All right. That brings up the next fight here, and that is going to be Kennedy, the African Savage, Nzechukwu going up against Devin Brown Bear Clark. And Nzechukwu a minus 190 favorite. Clark is a plus 165 underdog here. And we got the fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at minus 140. All right. Let's see here. Let Uncle Weezy cook. Yeah, I'm not cooking. I'm just reading these stats and reading these notes, but we got to get through 14 fights tonight. It's definitely, yeah, say it one more time. Peruvian fighter, baby. Yes, he is part of the Peruvian invasion here. These guys are kicking down the door, man. Daniel Marcos, Rolando Bedoya, Claudio Puelles. We've seen these guys come in. The Peruvian regional scene seems to be getting better and better. And we're seeing a lot of guys from Argentina and Peru stand up for the southern tip of South America. So, yeah, very interesting stuff here, man. Let's see. We've got Bedoya inside the distance. If he can get around Khaos's haymakers. You know what I mean? Like, Bedoya is just so defensively irresponsible. It really bothers me. But at the same time, he's got a well-rounded game. He could wrestle a little bit. He's got a little bit of a submission game. He's got good ground and pound. He's always throwing in combination, and he's got durability. So it's going to be interesting to see how he makes it. And good night, Mushroom. Thanks for hanging out with us. I know it's 12:16 a.m. Philly time, getting up at 6 a.m. I will be asleep at 6 a.m. I will be asleep at 8 a.m. I will be asleep at 9 a.m. Maybe 10 a.m. I'll get out of bed tomorrow, but we'll see how it all goes, man. All right. And my guy Nigel Lee saying, by the way, who's on the Bilal Express? He's got a first-class ticket. Depends on what line, Nigel. It depends on what line we got here. But this line is closing fast, and it's making it a little bit more interesting on the Gilbert Burns side. But I should have gotten on Bilal plus 150. That would have been a really smart thing to do, man. And right here, you got to say, man, Ice Viking letting us know that everything tastes a little different on the tip. And you got that right, buddy. Boy, I'll tell you that, man. Okay, you guys, let's get to this African Savage, Kennedy and Nzechukwu going up against Devin Brown Bear Clark here. So my notes start off with Kennedy and Nzechukwu, and he's an absolutely huge light heavyweight. He's got freakish measurables, 6'5", 83-inch reach, and he's a southpaw. He's 11-3 as a pro. He's got 130 minutes of pro cage time, and 8 of those 11 wins have come inside the distance, all by way of knockout. Kennedy's 5-3 at the UFC level, and he's finished 4 of his wins and has been finished in 2 of his losses. So 6 of his 8 UFC fights have finished inside the distance. Kennedy has decent distance striking metrics. He's got a negative 0.36 distance striking differential and a negative 0.37 distance strike differential. He's got 2 knockdowns in 6 fights, and he's absorbed 1. And 58% of his UFC cage time has taken place at distance striking range. The frustrating thing about watching Kennedy is he just doesn't do enough. He can be low volume at times and way too patient. If he just let his hands go more often, he would be so difficult to deal with. Kennedy has this amazing wealth of physical gifts: height, length, strength, very good conditioning. In addition to that, his striking is clean. He throws punches straight and long, same with his kicks, and he uses his length well. The step-in knees he was timing against Kudalaba in the second round were absolutely incredible. The only reason he loses fights is because he fails to take advantage of the rare combination of gifts that he does have. Every Kennedy fight is another opportunity for this kid to pull more tools out of the toolbox and show off all the aspects of his MMA game. And if he continues to do that, this kid could absolutely wear gold. He hadn't seen Kennedy grapple. We hadn't seen Kennedy grapple at all until the Roberson fight. Prior to that, he had only attempted one takedown in the UFC. So it's very encouraging to see Kennedy start to mix in the wrestling because he's huge. He's got long arms, and he can win minutes that way with top control and submission attempts. Kennedy's faced a decent level of competition at the UFC level, and the combined record of the 5 guys that he's beaten is 16 wins and 20 losses. Kennedy is a young 31 years old for the 205-pound division, so I'm very interested to see how he performs against a veteran like Clark, and I'm anxious to see if he takes the next step by using his wrestling in reverse while letting his hands go on the feet. And he's going to be going up against Devin Brown Bear Clark. Now, Devin is a 33-year-old wrestler training out of Jackson Wink in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He's got a 14-7 pro record, over 225 minutes in the pro cage, and he's been a pro for almost 10 years. He's got an 8-7 UFC record with over 170 minutes in the UFC cage, so he definitely has a lot of high-level experience. Devin is definitely more of a minute winner than a moment winner, as evidenced by his 12.5% finish rate in the UFC and his 86% finish rate in his 7 UFC losses. He's been finished 3 times by knockout and 3 times by submission. And his only decision loss was a 3-round ass shaving at the hands of Ion Kudalaba, where Ion knocked Devin's teeth out, and the fight probably could have been stopped several times. In Devin's 8 UFC wins, he's gotten 23 of the 65 takedowns that he's accumulated. He's gotten 23 of the 65 takedowns he's attempted, and he's accumulated 42.5% control time for and allowed 24.1% control time against. So the fights that he's winning are grinding fights where almost 2/3 of the control of the total cage time is spent in control time positions. Devin has never won a UFC fight without getting a takedown, and he's never gotten less than 160 seconds of control time in any fight that he's won. Devin has a positive 0.94 distance striking differential and a positive 1.6 distance striking attempt differential with 41.5% accuracy and 62% defense. He's landed 3 knockdowns and he's absorbed 4 at the UFC level, and he's gotten 1 win by knockout in the UFC over that bum William Knight, and he's been knocked out 3 times by he's been KO'd 3 times by Asmat Murzakanov, Rakic, and Nicholson. Devin has actually done a solid job at distance striking range of winning minutes, but he spends 62% of his fights in control time positions, and that's where he prefers to fight. Devin averages 2.36 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he allows 1.14. He outcontrols his opponents 34% to 27.5% and wins 55% of the control time positions that he's been in. Definitely not very efficient, seeing that Devin has attempted 79 takedowns and his opponents have had 32. So if Kennedy does choose to wrestle here, there's a good chance he'll have success against Clark, who has 59% takedown defense and has allowed 47.2 minutes of control time to his opponents on only 13 takedowns allowed. Devin has fought a solid level of competition. His wins are against guys with a just below 500 record, and he's losing the really solid guys. So in summary, Kennedy is going to be the much bigger fighter here with a 5-inch height and an 8-inch reach advantage. He's a southpaw. He's 2 years younger than Devin. He's the much more potent finisher. Kennedy has more power on the feet and definitely has a more diverse array of tools that go with his fantastic length, and his wrestling game is improving. Devin is more experienced overall, and in the UFC. He's shown solid minute-winning potential at distance striking range and an ability to win minutes in the clinch with his wrestling and top control. Devin has fought and beaten the better level of UFC competition in comparison to Kennedy. There are some common opponents between these two guys. Kennedy beat Ion, and Clark lost to Ion, while Clark beat Da Un Jung, and Kennedy got his ass shaved by Jung. So, frankly, if Kennedy continues to put it all together, I think he gets the job done here and knocks Clark out in the second round. I could see Clark having some early success with his wrestling, grappling, and clinch game, but Kennedy's going to be really difficult to take and hold down. And frankly, I think because of his size, length, and athletic ability, Kennedy winds up being the more effective grappler in this fight. I'm looking for Kennedy to take the next step on Saturday by beating 7 shades of shit out of Devin Clark and finishing him with a second round knockout. So we're going to go with Kennedy, the African Savage, and Nzechukwu to win by second round knockout over Devin Brown Bear Clark. All right, and that brings up the next fight. Drew Dober at minus 208 going up against Matt Frevola at plus 178. Fight doesn't go to decision, up at minus 270 for this battle. This is going to be a fun one here, man. Kennedy threw that on Jung. Dude, that was a weird one, man. Getting hit through your guard. He's getting elbowed into his forearms when they're like this, and then he goes down. A guy that had shown, absorbed like 150 significant strikes from Carlos Ulberg and never once went down. And then he gets knocked out by an elbow to his forearm. Just bizarre, man. Yeah, William Bum. You got that right. Devin Clark's dad should fight Kennedy instead. That would be really fun, man. Yeah, Fight Talk only loves it. He took 500 from yeah, I know he did. He took 500 from Ulberg, and then he went out there and got knocked out in the first round by Don Jung. Made no sense. I had the finish-only prop on Kennedy and Nzechukwu for that fight because of his durability. Wound up being one of the worst bets that I've ever made in my life. So, Dober, minus 208. Frevola, plus 178. The Doberman versus the Steamroller. Who's going to win, everybody? Well, let's figure it out. We got Drew Dober is a 34-year-old Southpaw Muay Thai kickboxer training out of Elevation Fight Team in Colorado. He's got 38 professional fights, a 26-11 record with 1 no contest, and over 350 minutes in the pro cage. So he is a cagey, wily veteran. Drew has 20 UFC fights, and he's got a 12-7 record with 1 no contest, with almost 170 minutes in the octagon. 9 of Drew's 12 UFC wins come inside the distance. That's 8 knockouts and 1 submission. Drew's a very good kickboxer. He's known for his ironclad chin that's attached to a very handsome face, and for his power as well. Drew's got 8 knockdowns in 20 UFC fights and 8 wins by knockout. Only one of Dober's UFC knockdowns did not result in a knockout win, and that was in the Aubin Mercier fight. 61% of Drew's fights take place at distance striking range, where Drew stays busy throwing 2.89 more distance strike attempts per minute, more than his opponents, and where he lands 5.56 distance strikes per minute. The problem is Drew relies on his chin too much and shows a subpar 55% distance striking defense, so he actually has a negative 0.24 distance striking differential. Excuse me. Drew does mix in the wrestling, as he has attempted 46 takedowns in his 20 UFC fights, but he's only gotten 8 of them for 17.4% accuracy, and he gets 0.71 takedowns per 15 minutes while allowing 2.22. Drew's shown a good get-up game, though, as he still manages to win 41.5% of his control time positions, despite yielding 17 more takedowns than he's gotten, with only 55% takedown defense. Drew's fought a solid and very experienced level of competition in the UFC, and his wins are over guys with a combined UFC record of 52 wins and 65 losses. So a 0.8 ratio and a 4.33 and 5.42 loss average record are his opponents at the UFC level. And with Matt Frevola, we've got a 32-year-old fighter training out of Weidman Longo as well as Gracie Tampa South. He splits time between those two camps. He's 5'9" with a 71-inch reach, and he's got a 10-3-1 pro record, with 6 of those 10 wins coming inside the distance, and that's 3 knockouts and 3 submissions. Matt is 4 wins, 3 losses, and a draw in the UFC, with 2 knockout wins and 1 loss by submission and 1 loss by knockout. The Steamroller's a wild man. He's got a solid wrestling and grappling base, and in fights where you would normally expect him to use that base for his own safety and well-being, he instead chooses to stand and bang. And sometimes it works, and sometimes he gets served. Both times Matt's been finished were in the first minute of the first round. Once by Terrence McKinney in 7 seconds, and once by Polo Reyes at the 1 minute mark. And both of Matt's finishes also came in the first against Gennaro Valdez and Atman the Potato Cannon Azaitar. At striking range, Matt has been in wild swang and bang slobber knockers. Matt has spent 46 minutes at distance striking range in the UFC, and in that time, there have been a total of 10 knockdowns in his fights. Matt's landed 5, and Matt's had 5 landed against him. So Frevolar's got a negative 0.89 distance striking differential and a negative 1.54 distance strike attempt differential, with 35% accuracy and 61.6% striking defense. If Matt stands and bangs with Dober, he is getting served for real. Dober has legendary durability and has only been dropped once in 20 UFC fights, and he hits like a truck. So Matt's going to have to be very careful about how he engages with Dober on the feet. Matt has been a willing grappler. He's attempted 28 takedowns in 8 UFC fights, and he averages 2.24 takedowns per 15 minutes, 0.67 submission attempts per 15 minutes, and 0.67 reverses per 15 minutes. He's been outcontrolled 16.5% to 14.8% in control time positions. However, outside of the Sarukian fight, Matt has only been controlled by his opponents for 5% of his UFC cage time. So Matt usually does a good job of using his wrestling and grappling to win minutes, particularly in the Jalen Turner fight. Matt has fought a solid level of competition in the UFC, and his 4 wins are over guys with a combined 13-9 record. So he's not just beating bums. Can't wait to see what should be a really entertaining fight on Saturday. So this one's going to be a banger. Drew's got a massive overall and UFC experience advantage. He's been the more potent finisher, and he's been more durable. He has the power advantage on the feet to Drew Dober, and he should be the better minute winner on the feet in this matchup, despite his subpar striking defense. And Drew's definitely fought the more experienced competition at the UFC level. Now, Frevola is 1.5 years younger. He's 1 inch taller, and he's got a 1 inch reach advantage. He will be the more likely guy to go to the wrestling and win minutes there, and he has fought the better win-loss ratio competition at the UFC level. I like Dober quite a bit here. I don't really see anywhere in this fight where Matt wins minutes or even moments. And Drew's durability is a real problem for dudes who like to stand in the pocket and trade, because Drew rarely loses a whose chin is harder battle. Matt hasn't been a consistent enough minute winner with his wrestling outside of the Turner fight, so I'm going to pick Drew Dober to win this fight by first round knockout. So, Tapology, Drew Dober to win by KO in round number 1. I don't have enough faith in Frevola's wrestling to think that he's going to spend enough time in control time positions to resist and not find enough minutes in the cage for Drew Dober to land that one big shot, which is all he needs. And even though Frevola is a pretty durable guy, he has been finished twice at the UFC level by hard hitters, and Drew Dober is certainly that. So going with Drew Dober to win by first round knockout. The next fight, Kron Gracie versus Charles Jourdain. We've got Kron is plus 150, Charles Jourdain minus 175. The fight doesn't go to decision, juiced up at minus 250 here. Yeah, it's not going to be a good day for him, I don't think, but we will see. Frevola the Steamroller says, Mr. D, hope Matt stands and bangs. And love Ray Longo and his team, but I got to go with Drew Dober inside the distance. I am definitely right there with you, my man. But yeah, Kron Gracie plus 150, Charles minus 175. Fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at minus 250. Yeah, so let's first start talking about Kron Gracie here. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion who has 2 professional fights since the year 2016. 2 fights since 2016. His last fight was a unanimous decision loss to Cub Swanson back in 2019. So we haven't seen Kron fight in 3.5 years. Jourdain has had 9 UFC fights since the last time Kron showed up for a fight. 9 fights Jourdain has had. So Kron is a southpaw. He pressures on the feet, but he doesn't really cut off the cage. So he kind of just follows his opponent around, trying to close the distance to get takedowns. I'm not sure if Kron can wrestle at all. He only attempted 2 takedowns versus Swanson, which made no sense and had to enrage Kron Gracie bettors as he fought one of the stupidest game plans I've ever seen. Follow cover on the cage, shoot 2 takedowns in 15 minutes, and get picked apart the entire fight. He lost that fight 30-27 on all 3 scorecards. In the Alex Caceres fight, Alex got his back taken standing after overextending on a punch. If Kron gets to a dominant position on the ground, he's phenomenal. I mean, if not, he's really not even UFC level. So he's fought 2 quality opponents at the UFC level in Swanson and Caceres, but there's no way to know where he's at right now after 3.5 years away from the cage, especially going against an active fighter like Jourdain. Now, Charles is still only 27 years old. He's 5'9". He's got a 70-inch reach, and he's 13-6-1 as a professional with over 235 minutes in the cage. Charles has 4 wins, 5 losses, and a draw in the UFC, and he's got about 130 minutes in the octagon. So he's been a very busy fighter, and he's very experienced for his age. Charles is a finisher. Only 1 of his 13 pro wins has been by decision. He's got 4 submissions, and he's got 8 knockouts to his credit. Charles does good work on the feet. He's busy, he's flashy, and he's powerful. He's got a positive 0.73 distance striking differential with 45% accuracy and 61.5% striking defense. He's landed 6 knockdowns and absorbed 2, and Charles has finished 3 of his 4 UFC wins, and 2 of those finishes are by knockout. 73% of Charles' fights take place at distance striking range. He's confident and dangerous at range, so his opponents usually try to take him down, and this fight should be no different. Charles has faced 41 takedown attempts in 10 fights, and he's yielded 21 of them, showing terrible 49% takedown defense, but he's only getting out-controlled 17.7% to 9%. He gets taken down a lot, but he always gets back up. But against a guy like Gracie, if he gives up his back trying to stand back up, it could be a wrap. Charles has faced solid UFC competition, but his 4 wins are over guys with a combined 11-win and 18-loss UFC record. So he isn't beating top-notch dudes. Like his wins are over Duho Choi, Marcelo Rojo, Andre Ewell, and Lando Venata. But his losses do come against really solid dudes. So in summary, it's really hard to cap this fight. Does Kron Gracie still give a shit? How could he in all seriousness? I mean, if he's only fought twice in the last 7 years, I mean, the guy clearly doesn't give a shit about being a professional fighter. He's got other things that are going on in his life that are much more important than mixed martial arts. So, and he's a 34-year-old featherweight, and he's a BJJ prodigy, but he has no wrestling to speak of. Charles is 7 years younger. He's more experienced as a professional and in the UFC. He's the better striker. He's got more power, and he has better conditioning. Kron is the superior submission grappler. I feel as if Kron should win this fight if he shows up in shape and ready to go. Jourdain is easy to take down, and he's been subbed before. And Gracie's pressure style on the feet is similar to Erosa's, and we saw Erosa break Jourdain in the 3rd round before. The overs in this fight are very underpriced, according to the analytics, but the fact that this is a Kron Gracie fight kind of throws a wrench into the analytics, meaning anything here. So I honestly have no clue what's happening in this fight. And this is as 1-800 gambler as it gets. But if you're one of those compulsive types who has to bet on every fight, I don't know, Jourdain by KO? Yeah, Jourdain, third round KO, I guess. I wouldn't bet this fight, you guys. I would not bet this fight. There is just, who knows what the hell is going on with Kron Gracie, really. But on my prop template, I wanted to call attention to this because I know everybody's betting the under in this fight, but it's important to have the stats. And this prop template, by the way, available on my Patreon on the advanced tier. And we see here that, for instance, like this over 2.5 rounds is at plus 160. That's a 38.46% implied probability. But 61% of featherweight fights go over 2.5 rounds. And a combined 9 of 12 fights for Jourdain and Gracie at the UFC level have went over 2.5 rounds. So that's 75%. So 75% is how many of their fights have went over 2.5 rounds in a 12-fight sample size at the UFC level. But the cost of the line is only 38.46%. So a 22% underpricing when we compare to this, a 36% underpricing when we compare this to this, and a 14% underpricing when we compare this to this. So very underpriced, very cheap overs in this fight, but I still don't think I'll be betting them because it's a fight that I really don't want my money anywhere near here. So did we get that up on Tapology? That we did. All right. So the next fight that we were going to talk about was going to be Movsar Evloev versus Bryce Mitchell, but that fight is not happening. So now it's Movsar Evloev versus Diego Lopes. Diego Lopes stepping in on 4 days' notice. He will have to wait on 72 hours' notice to fight an absolute killer in Movsar Evloev. Look, I didn't tape Lopes, but I remember him from his Dana White Contender Series fight against Joe Anderson Brito. There's really no point in taping this fight. Movsar is probably going to be minus 1,000. Lopes is nowhere near his level, and there won't be any way to make money on this fight. I'm picking Evloev to win this fight by second round ground and pound knockout. There we go. Even though Evloev almost always just wins by decision, the fact that Lopes is taking this fight on short notice, the fact that Lopes kind of just loves to play off of his back and hunt for submissions. I think Evloev can keep this standing as long as he wants to. And even if Lopes does get a takedown, I think Evloev gets right back up. And if Evloev wants takedowns and wants ground and pound, he'll be able to do that. Otherwise, he probably just boxes him up for 3 rounds and wins a decision. But, I think that Evloev is trying to take that next step. He's getting a short notice opponent, a guy that's, a regional scene journeyman. He's okay. Very good Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but not much else going on there. So, yeah, I like Evloev to win here. Call it second round knockout. But, this isn't a fight I'm going to be trying to look for angles on because it's going to be juiced to the tits on the money line. Evloev by decision will probably be minus 200. Evloev by inside the distance will probably be, like maybe just a little bit of plus money. But, yeah, this is going to be bizarre here. Too wide of a line. No point in talking about it. And, this just got announced a couple hours before the show started today. So, not going to go into that fight at all. The next fight that we're going to talk about is going to be the very handsome Jessica Andrade at minus 203 going up against Yan Xiaonan, plus 173. The fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at plus 100 here. And let's get the stats up on the screen. Let's see here. We got Ice Viking saying he's picking Canada, but he's got no bet there. And we got if Movsar pulled, everyone would be talking about. Everyone would be talking. Now Bryce pulls out, everyone covers his ass. Yeah, Bryce is probably hurt, but yeah, this fight, there's been this thing going between Evloev, Mitchell, and Topuria, and they can't seem to find a fight against each other. So, but Mitchell and Topuria did fight after Evloev had to pull out of that fight. And I think that, if you're going to pull out of a fight, this wasn't a good matchup for Mitchell. So maybe he did the right thing here. But let's talk first about Jessica Andrade. She's one of the pioneers. Here, wait, let me first do this. Working hard here. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't already, you guys. But Jessica Andrade, like I said, one of the pioneers of women's MMA. She's had an illustrious 11-year pro career, and she's been very busy in those 11-plus years as she's fought 34 times. She's got a 24-10 pro record, 290 minutes in the pro cage, 23 UFC fights, a 15-8 UFC record with over 220 minutes in the UFC octagon. So 8 of Jessica's 15 UFC wins come inside the distance. She's got 3 submissions and 5 knockouts. And Jess is 7-2 in the UFC in decisions. She's fought in all 3 weight classes at the UFC level, but as a strawweight, she's 8-3 with her only 3 losses coming against strawweight champions Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Zhang Wei Li, and Thug Rose. And she's got a win over Thug Rose as well. She's 1-1 against her. At distance striking range, Jess has got a positive 1.02 distance striking differential, 46% accuracy, and 59% defense. She's landed 3 knockdowns and absorbed 3 as well, and she's spent 64% of her cage time at distance striking range. Jessica loves the pressure, and when she closes the distance and backs her opponents up to the cage, she throws with power and either lands big or gets a takedown, and then she'll work ground and pound from top control. Jess is not known for her minute-winning ability at range. She is known for big actions that finish fights. Whether it's an overhand right that starched Karolina Kowalkiewicz and sent her to the middle of next week, a highlight reel slam knockout against Thug Rose, a standing arm triangle win against Lemos, a nasty body shot against Chookagian that finished her. It's when Jessica closes the distance that she does her best and most dangerous work. Jess also does a fantastic job of mixing in the grappling as well. She's got 10 takedowns Jessica Andrade got 10 takedowns and 435 seconds of control time versus Tecia Torres. She got 4 takedowns and 515 seconds of control time versus Claudia Gadelha. She got 2 takedowns in each of the Joanna Jędrzejczyk fights, the Angela Hill fight, the Joanne Calderwood fight, the Nama Yunus fight. She got 2 takedowns in all of those fights. All of these in the strawweight division. So she's always capable of getting takedowns if she doesn't like how the fight is going on the feet. Jessica has fought pretty much everyone in every division, and her strength of schedule is top-notch. Always good to see one of the OGs of the sport go to war. Jessica Andrade is absolutely one of my favorite female mixed martial artists of all time. And she's going to be fighting against Yan Xiaonan here, who is a 33-year-old strawweight training out of Team Alpha Male in Sacramento, California. She has good size for the division at 5'5" with a 65-inch reach. Yan is 16-3 with 1 no contest as a pro, with over 185 minutes in the pro cage and 7 of those 16 wins coming inside the distance by knockout. Yan does an excellent job of winning minutes at distance striking range, and she has a 9-1 career record in decisions. Yan has shown fantastic distance striking metrics in the UFC, landing 7.26 distance strikes per minute and absorbing only 4.33 for a fantastic positive 2.93 distance striking differential. Yan lands at a 42% clip, and she's got 65.6% distance striking defense, and she throws a ton of volume at 17.33 distance strike attempts per minute, and she throws 4.73 more distance strikes per minute spent at distance. So Yan just needs to spend more time at distance, because at the moment she's only spending about 65% of her UFC cage time at distance striking range. If she could get that number closer to like 80 or 85%, she'd be very difficult to deal with. Yan has done a good job of getting the takedown she's attempted, as she has 8 takedowns on only 12 attempts. Her takedown defense is solid at 70%, but she loses about 72% of the control time positions that she's in. So she needs to do a better job of getting back up when her opponents get her down. Seeing Carla Esparza get 438 seconds of control time and a ground and pound finish in only 2 rounds was quite an eye-opener. But outside of that fight, we've seen Jan get controlled for more than 400 seconds 3 other times at the UFC level. So the Esparza fight was not an isolated incident for her. Jan has fought a very solid level of competition at the UFC level. Her UFC wins are over ladies with a combined UFC record of 35 wins and 38 losses. And that's Kaylin Curran, Viviane Pereira, Suri Kondo, Angela Hill, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, Claudia Gadelha, and Mackenzie Dern. So in summary, Jessica Andrade is 2 years younger, and she's got the overall and UFC experience advantages, as well as being the much better finisher. She's got the power advantage on the feet. She's the better wrestler and grappler, and she's fought and beaten a better level of competition. Now, Yan Xiaonan is 4 inches taller, and she's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage here. She will be the much better minute winner at distance striking range. Jan is going to need to use all the area of the big cage this weekend and use impeccable footwork and distance management to keep Andrade on the end of her jab. She doesn't want to be in close with Jess because that's where she will feel her power and potentially get taken down and pounded out or subbed. So if Jan can keep this at range, she should win this fight easily. But that is going to be hard to do against a fighter like Jessica, who constantly pressures and loves to mix in the grappling. I loved how Jan managed distance versus Dern, and she won that fight. But Dern has lousy wrestling, while Andrade gets takedowns at a 55% clip over a 71 takedown attempt sample size. So I like Jess to close the distance and either land a big bomb or get this fight to the ground and finish Jan. So I'm picking Jessica Andrade to win this fight inside the distance by second round knockouts. Look at Jessica Andrade there. She's going to destroy this girl. So knockout in the second round for Jessica Bate Estaca Andrade, perhaps the most handsome fighter on the entire card. There we go, you guys. We've got 2 fights. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, right there. She is more handsome. It's the number 1 point. And Finesse LaFleur saying, definitely on the Jan side at plus money. Yeah, at plus money. Look, at plus money, if you're on that Jan side and you think that she can keep this at distance striking range and that's your read on the fight, she's probably going to win this fight because that's not how Jessica wins fights. She doesn't just stand at distance and win minutes. That's what Jan does. So, it's going to be up to Jessica to close the distance here, to get that wrestling going, to pressure, to back Jan up, to cut off that cage and put her, get her in a corner and then either get those takedowns or land those big shots with Jan's back up against the cage. Yeah. And Ice Viking is going with Jan by decision. And if I was betting Jan, I would bet her by decision. She's not a finisher at this level. The problem is that Andrade has been finished in 6 or 7 losses. So, perhaps Jan could get a finish and we might just be being greedy by not just taking the straight money line. But either way, we'll see how this one goes. I'm picking Bate Estaca, Jessica Andrade to finish this fight. All right. Next fight is the co-main event of the evening. It's a 5-round fight, probably a title eliminator here. I think that the winner of this fight probably gets the next title shot after Leon fights Colby. Bilal, remember the name Muhammad, plus 105. Gilbert Burns, minus 125. Fight doesn't go to decision. Juiced up at minus 105 here. We got the stats up on the screen. Let's first start talking about Bilal. If you haven't already taken the time to remember Bilal's name, now might be the time to do so. He's white hot. He's on a 9-fight unbeaten streak with his last loss coming by decision against Jeff Neal back in January of 2019. That's the last time he's lost. Bilal's 34 years old, 5'11", 72-inch reach. He's a wily veteran in the sport. 26 pro fights, a 22-3 pro record with only 6 of those wins coming inside the distance, 1 submission and 5 knockouts. Bilal is 13-3 with a no contest in the UFC with 3 of those 13 wins coming inside the distance. He's got 2 knockouts and a submission at the UFC level. Now, Belal is a high IQ minute winner who has a well-rounded skill set, the experience to know when to use what tools and how to make his opponents fight at a pace they are uncomfortable with. He has a 16-2 record in decisions, so obviously this dude knows how to get the job done against a wide variety of high-level opponents. On the feet, Belal is a minute winner. He's never landed a knockdown in 17 UFC fights, but he does have a positive 0.57 distance striking differential, a positive 1.23 distance strike attempt differential. He's got 40% accuracy and 60% defense. He spends 71% of his UFC cage time at distance striking range, so he's comfortable there, even if he does lose some moments there, as Belal has absorbed 6 knockdowns in his 17 UFC fights. What Belal does best is be the fighter who decides where the fight takes place. He averages 2.19 takedowns per 15 minutes. He's got 34 takedowns on 97 attempts, and he's only been taken down 3 times on 41 attempts against. So with almost 93% takedown defense and only 4.47% control time allowed, Belal is great at initiating the grappling when it's to his benefit, getting takedowns, winning minutes on the ground, and limiting his opponent's ability to do the same to him when Belal is the better striker. Belal is a tough out. He fights smart. He doesn't make dumb mistakes, and he's comfortable wherever the fight goes. If there's a hole in your game, Belal will find it and expose it. Belal has fought top-notch competition, and he has fantastic wins over top-notch dudes. And he's going to be facing Gilbert Burns, who's a 36-year-old fighter training out of Kill Cliff FC in South Florida. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion who has been a pro MMA fighter for over 11 years now. He's got a 22-5 pro record with 15 wins coming inside the distance. He's got 9 submissions and 6 knockouts. And he's 15-5 in the UFC with 230 minutes in the octagon and 8 wins coming inside the distance. That's 3 knockouts and 5 submissions. Gil has been knocked out in 2 of his 5 UFC losses, and he's 7-3 in the UFC in decisions. Gil has solid distance striking statistics. He's got a negative 0.24 distance striking differential, and he's kind of low volume, throwing less than 10 attempts per minute spent at distance. However, he's landed 4 knockdowns, and he has 3 wins by knockout, so he definitely has some pop in his hands. Gil has 58% distance striking defense, and he's absorbed 7 knockdowns, so he has lost his share of moments on the feet as well. Like Belal, Gil does his best work on the ground. He gets 2.16 takedowns per 15 minutes. He attempts 0.59 submissions per 15 minutes, and he wins 70% of the control time positions he's been in, out-controlling his opponents 27% to 11%. Gilbert has also fought high-level competition at the UFC level, and his wins are also very good. So in summary, these guys are well-matched. Bilal's 2 years younger, he's 1 inch taller, and he's got a 1 inch reach advantage. He's been a consistent minute winner wherever fights go, while Gil is more of a moment winner. Belal is probably the better minute winner on the feet, and he definitely has the better takedown defense. Gilbert is the better moment winner on the feet because he's shown more power and is obviously the better and more opportunistic submission grappler. It's important to note that this is a very quick turnaround for Gilbert, as he fought Jorge Masvidal for 3 rounds just 4 weeks ago. And this will be his second weight cut and second fight in the last 4 weeks. Belal is coming off fasting for Ramadan, so he originally wanted this fight at 175 pounds, but Burns said no dice. So there are some narrative issues here to remember with this fight. I'm having a hard time picking a winner here. I don't like this matchup for Belal, though. I'm not sure if he wants to grapple with Burns. And Burns has more pop on the feet. So in this stylistic matchup, I know Belal is really good everywhere other than conditioning and fight IQ. Where is he really that much better than Gilbert Burns, though? I'm going to pick Gilbert Burns to win this fight by decision with very low confidence due to the narrative issues in this fight. I just don't know. I feel really good about betting on Belal Muhammad when I know that mixing in the grappling is for sure part of the winning game plan for him. Now, Gilbert's been taken down 12 times in 20 fights, so people have wrestled him. And he's got less than 50% takedown defense. So if Belal wants to wrestle, I'm sure Gilbert will let him take him down. So that is a potential that if Belal feels confident that he can avoid the submissions of Gilbert Burns when he takes him down, then I think it's a lot more likely that he would win this fight by decision, because I think he can win minutes while it's on the feet. But if Burns clips him, or if Belal, when he gets takedowns, winds up just defending submissions the whole time, I think this plays out a lot closer. So, like I said, I'm going to pick Gilbert Burns to win this one by decision, but with very, very low confidence here. All right. And that brings us to the main event of the evening, everybody. Aljamain Sterling, the Funk Master, minus 103, going up against Triple C, Henry Cejudo, at minus 117. The fight doesn't go to decision, right at 50-50, plus 100. All right. So let's see what we got here. Belal, what's his name? Muhammad. Yeah, that's right. It's remember the name. Remember the name, man. Anthony W. saying, damn, I'm late. Appreciate you being on late tonight, Unk. We got M. Tess saying, Chi-Town, stand up. What's going on to M? Good to see you in here. He's saying it's Burns by sub or Belal by decision. Pretty binary and hard fight to call. Could go either way. And Anthony's saying, nothing about MMA is binary, brother. That's why we watch. We're going to see, man. This fight is pretty binary. It's going to be a finish coming from Burns. He has more finish equity, but Belal has more decision equity. Yeah, he does. But let's get into this last fight. I don't have notes on this one. This is the only one I don't have notes on. But it's Aljo against Henry. And the problem is that the last fight for Henry Cejudo here, let's get the advanced stats up here. All available on my Patreon. Dominic Cruz back in May of 2020. So it's been 3 years since we've seen Henry Cejudo. His last 3 wins are all finishes, knockouts over Dillashaw and then Moraes and Dominic Cruz at 135. And Aljo has been very active. Aljo has fought since 2019, since February of 2019, he's had, 6 fights. And, he got the championship after Jan pulled a dumbass move, and then he won a decision he probably shouldn't have against Jan, and then he fought a guy with one arm in TJ Dillashaw. So, yikes, man. This is one I just don't have a good feeling about the money line on this fight. We're missing information. What's Cejudo going to look like? First of all, he's a bantamweight and he's 36 years old. And, really he's a flyweight who moved up to bantamweight. I mean, this guy's only 5'4", so he should be a flyweight, but he's fighting at bantamweight. We haven't seen him in 3 years. What is Henry Cejudo going to come out here looking like? And I think that's the crux of this money line argument, is that you're going to have to make some assumptions about what Henry's going to look like here. But if we see Triple C that came out 3 years ago and starched Dominic Cruz, well, then, this is going to be a fair fight, and Henry's going to have a really good chance to win it. But where's he at? We know that he probably just wasn't making enough money. He wanted to make more money, so he retired, hoping that Dana would come to the table with a better deal. That never happened. So then he came back of his own free will, and now here he is. And he's getting his first shot back. He's getting a title shot here in a very stacked bantamweight division. So he must be ready to go. He trains at Fight Ready, so we know that he's in one of the top rooms in the entire country in terms of having good training partners, good coaching, good wrestling, good game plans. And Aljamain Sterling over on the other coast, while Arizona isn't really a coast, but you guys know what I'm talking about here. He's over there on the East Coast, New York, training over there at Weidman Longo. Aljo is a very good wrestler, but an excellent submission grappler, very opportunistic on the ground. We see that Aljo throws a lot of volume on the feet. He lands 6.1 distance strikes per minute and only absorbs 3.45. And he's throwing about 4 more distance strike attempts per minute than his opponents. Really good distance striking defense. He's been knocked down 4 times and knocked down nobody. So he has lost some moments, while we've seen a guy like Henry Cejudo go out there and get 5 knockdowns and only absorb 1 in 12 UFC fights. So Henry is landing just as many distance strikes per minute as he absorbs, and he throws a little bit less volume than his opponents do, but it's Henry who's winning the moments on the feet. And if Henry doesn't like how it's going on the feet, he can rely on that gold medal wrestling background that he has in order to get fights to the ground. And that's another thing that Henry does very, very well, is he chooses where the fight takes place. Aljo doesn't really have that power. Aljo's got 41% takedown defense, you guys. That's a big problem, because if Aljamain Sterling is winning the minutes on the feet with that 7-inch reach advantage that he has, that 3-inch height advantage that he has, if he's able to maintain the distance, use the big cage, wind up picking this dude apart from a distance, Henry's just going to try to take him down. And then if Henry tries to take you down, chances are you're going down. So, however this fight is going, I feel like Henry's going to have more options here, because Henry is the better wrestler. He gets his takedowns at a much better clip. He gets more takedowns per 15 minutes. Henry has got 93% takedown defense on 15 attempts against, while Aljamain Sterling, folds like a lawn chair anytime somebody gets near his hips. So I just feel like Henry has more options here. And I don't think it's a lot of juice to lay. I mean, I think if we see the old Henry Cejudo here, he's going to look a lot better than -120, because with Aljo, if he's not getting takedowns and getting the people's back, and if he's not winning minutes on the feet, chances are he's losing the fight, because Henry is going to be more powerful. Henry does have excellent kickboxing and a ton of power, and Henry's got the much better wrestling. So even though Sterling's the far more opportunistic and dangerous submission grappler, I don't think it gets to places where he can engage that part of his MMA game unless Henry allows it to happen. And Henry's got too good a takedown defense and too good a minute-winning abilities in the grappling exchanges in order to let that happen. In addition, if you look at the strength of schedule stats right here, Henry's fighting the more experienced competition and the better win-loss ratio competition in comparison to Sterling. And he's also got the better wins, better ratio, more experienced opponents here. So the problem is that, we don't know if Henry Cejudo is going to be the old Henry Cejudo, because it's 3 years away from the cage, because you don't see a lot of 36-year-olds peaking in the bantamweight division. But I'm going to pick the fight doesn't go to decision here as my favorite bet for this fight. And I'm going to pick Henry Cejudo to win this one by 4th round knockout. All right, so let's go here. Henry Cejudo, KO, round 4. Fight doesn't go. We'll see how it all goes. The Messenger back, Triple C back, and we'll see if Aljamain Sterling was serious about saying that he had to break another man's dream in order to achieve his. And we're going to find out who wins this fight. Great bantamweight title fight. Aljo versus Henry. Can't wait for this one. Thank you guys for hanging out. 52 of you still hanging out live in here with me. Let's see here. We're going to go to Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. You guys, let me know in the chat who you think the ass shaving of the week this week should be. But in the meantime, I will give you my track bets for this week. I've only got 2 so far, but I'm going to be adding a lot more after tonight. And for those of you who are on the Patreon, I will be posting all my tracked bets to the Patreon. So keep an eye out for them there. But as of right now, I've just got a quarter unit on Virna Jandiroba to win this one by submission. And then I also did a 2-leg money line parlay here with the Kennedy and Nzechukwu and Drew Dober money lines. And Nzechukwu minus 190 on DraftKings, Dober minus 205 on DraftKings. That comes out to plus 127. I've got 1 unit on that, and then I'm going to be adding a bunch of bets after this, after I finish up just looking at these lines and seeing where the spots stick out to me. But that leaves us with just one more order of business, and that's going to be Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. Who's going to win this week and win in violent fashion? Who is going to go in there and shave their opponent's ass and leave them lifeless on the canvas wondering what the hell happened? Well, we got a lot of good options this week. I think that there are a lot of fighters that have the ability to shave ass here. We got M. Test saying beautiful breakdowns as always, Weezy. I appreciate you, my man. We got Rolando saying Kennedy is ass shaving Clark. I love it. We got Divine 2 saying Chaos definitely shaving the ass. I got Victor saying Nzechukwu ass shaving. And we got Estevam looking good, to be honest, saying Anthony W. We got Mr. D saying it's either Chaos or Evloev to shave asses. I'm not putting Evloev in there because I don't even know where the line is, and I'm just assuming he's going to be like minus 1,000. But I'm going to do something a little bit different this week, you guys, because there were some. Normally, I have a hard time finding one. But tonight, on Just a Tip with Uncle Weezy, I'm giving you 2 ass shavings. We're coming off Caio Bahaio shaving the ass of Mihailo Oleksiejczuk last week, and I want 2 this week. So I'm going to give you 2. My guys, Lando and Victor de Jesus, were correct about the first one. It's going to be Kennedy and Nzechukwu to shave the ass of Devin Clark, but it's also going to be Drew the Doberman Dober to shave the ass of Matt the Steamroller Frevola. I just love the fact that Dober's a lot more durable. That when this gets into distance striking range and both guys are swinging and banging, I know I can count on the chin of Dober, and I also know that I think that he's a lot more powerful on the feet than the Steamroller Frevola, and I just haven't seen enough minute-winning potential out of Frevola for me to think that this fight won't take place on the feet for long enough for Drew Dober to find that big shot and find that knockout. And since both of Matt Frevola's losses that come in the UFC by way of knockout were in the very first round, I think there's a very good chance that Drew Dober finds that chin in round number 1, shaves his ass, as well as I just think Kennedy and Nzechukwu's got a 10 times higher ceiling than Devin Clark. Devin Clark's going to have to hug this dude, but Kennedy's much bigger than him, much longer than him, much stronger than him, and I think that he could even be the better grappler here. And if that's the case, Clark's going to be out of his depth on the feet as well, being at that 8-inch reach disadvantage, having a really hard time closing the distance against a guy like Kennedy. So I think that both of those guys go out there and shave some ass on Saturday, you guys. I appreciate all of you guys hanging out with me. Up next, Wednesday, tomorrow, 6 o'clock Central Time, the DFS show on Pub Sports Radio with myself, Brady. Gordo will be taking this week off, so I think it's going to be Lou Betya and Monk. And then tomorrow night, look for some content here, either Ask Weezy or some Prize Picks content, 10 o'clock Central Time. Keep an eye out on Twitter for the link here, or keep an eye out on YouTube for a link. I'll be going live tomorrow night at 10 o'clock, and that will end and then we're also going to be doing props to consider and maybe bet on the MMA Engine YouTube channel with my guy Lou Betya, and also with Kyle Marley. And that does it for this week's content. The only thing left to do is to stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC 288. God bless each and every one of you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a great night, and thank you for tuning in. Enjoy the fights.